Welcome to the Beginner Guides to Coffee, and today let's talk everything V60, how to get the best possible result with a simple and repeatable technique. In this video, I'll walk you through the list of kits I recommend you have, the kind of coffee you need, as well as the technique. Let's start with the list of kits I recommend you have. Grinder. Now when it comes to grinder, we have some few things to keep in mind. Number one, grind size uniformity. It is really important because the way the machine will grind the coffee, it is just how the water will extract the coffee. So if you have a cheap entry level blade grinder that some particles are big, some are small, in the process of extraction, the bigger particles will be under extracted, the smaller particles will be over extracted, and by the end of the brew, you do have a bad cup of coffee. The second thing, it is pre-ground coffee. Now it is okay because many people can't really afford grinders like this, so they go to a roastery, get a coffee, ask the roaster or the barista to grind the coffee. It is okay, it is fine. The downside is, number one, you have less control when it comes to the grind size, because whatever thing the roaster or the barista will give to you, that is what you brew always. Second thing, oxidation will take place, and then you start to lose all those flavors, those aromas. So at the end, you don't really enjoy what you spend your money for. So I strongly recommend grind fresh coffee. Great technique, great equipment with low quality coffee. Definitely you have bad extraction. And today I have a coffee from Limited Roastery, where Limited Roastery is a roasting company in UAE. They're based in Alin. They produce high quality coffee. If you are looking forward to take your skills to the next level and also to experience more in the coffee industry, then you have to visit Limited Roastery through their website, Instagram, or if you want to talk to the roaster one-on-one, the barista as well, you can visit them right here at their center. Thanks so much, Limited Roastery, for giving me this delicious coffee. You need scale. The scale is important because it weighs a gram. Ideally, it takes away guesswork in the brewing process. And also, if you need to update or to upgrade your recipe, you know exactly what you're taking out and what you're bringing in. Now, it doesn't matter what kind of scale you're using. You just need any digital scale that will weigh the gram ideally. Water, approximately 98% of that total extraction depends on the water. So the quality of your water will determine the quality of the extraction. And so keep in mind that water plays two roles in extraction. It plays as a solvent that helps to go into solution to extract those good stuff, and also it plays an ingredient. So water is really important in the brewing process. You definitely need the coffee maker, which is the V60. Here we have two things: the dripper and the sieve. Now for the sieve, whatever thing, any mug that you can brew your coffee directly into it, it is absolutely fine. This is from Fellow. I love Fellow product. The dripper, we have the plastic ones and the ceramic. Now whatever thing you have, you brew delicious cup of coffee. You need kettle. We pour the water into the coffee maker from the kettle, boil it in, which means with this will be the best option because it do have a heating element as well as a temperature controller that gives a nice temperature stability when we brew coffee. So if you can't afford something like this, it is okay because it is expensive. You can get something like this. Now this kettle is from Horo. It's a straight pouring kettle. There is no heating element, there is no temperature controller, but you can use this. Maybe you can use your gas, or you can use any other thing to heat up your water and put it inside. But again, it is good to use a thermometer to track the temperature. The other thing here is temperature will fluctuate at some point, but it's okay if you are just a coffee drinker. It is absolutely fine. This kettle is from Click-On as well. It is okay. This one, there is a heating element, but there is no temperature controller. So so you keep heating the water to a certain boiling point. Again, you have less control when it comes to this kind of kettle. Like I said before, it is okay. All these things will produce great result. You need some spoon, teaspoon, soup spoon. It is fine just to stir the coffee. Filter paper. Now we have a lot of V60 filter papers out there. Again, do great job. Now James Hoffman made a complete video when it comes to filter paper. You have to watch the video. So if we have these things, let's choose the right coffee. Choosing the right coffee is a great place to start to have that delicious cup, because if you choose the wrong coffee, definitely you have bad extraction. Now, after coffee has been roasted, we have different ways to brew coffee. Now, we have immersion or infusion brewers. Basically, the water and the coffee stays together for the entire brew time. Things like French press, clever drip, you name it. We also have what we call percolation brewers. Now, percolation brewers, the water keeps passing through the bed of coffee until you achieve your desired output. Things like the V60, the Chemix, you name it. we have pressurized brewers. Now the machine extract the coffee with some kind of high pressure. We also have decoction brewer. Now the water and the coffee stays together to a certain boiling point before the coffee is being extracted. Basically, we have light roast, light to medium, medium roast, medium to dark, and dark roast coffee. But you keep in mind that the lighter the roast, the more intact, the more dense the beans are. So it is really hard for the water to really extract the compounds from that particular coffee. So you don't need a longer contact time to stay to extract more compounds. That is why that 3 to 4 minutes brew time is really perfect to extract enough compounds. So most of the time, baristas will always recommend for your pour over, you can go for a more light or light to medium roast coffee to extract the good stuff. While for your espresso, you can go for medium or dark roast coffee. So for my recommendation as a beginner barista, someone getting into coffee, you can start with your medium roast coffee, because the medium roast coffee is in between the light roast and the dark roast. So let's explore the technique. First, I set up my coffee maker. Then I make sure I clean my filter paper. Here I do two things. Number one, I clean the filter paper to remove any papery taste in this filter paper, and also I preheat the brewer to keep temperature while I brew my coffee. The next thing, I have to weigh my coffee. So for my recipe today, I'll start with 20 grams of coffee. Now, as a beginner barista, someone getting into coffee, I strongly recommend try as much as possible to understand the technique, because we do have different roast profiles, different variety, different processing method, and all these things do have different impact to play in the brewing process. Now, some people do focus when it comes to the recipe, but for me, try as much as possible to understand the technique, because the technique will help you to brew any coffee that you actually have. So I have 20 grams of coffee, and I want to grab my coffee the last thing. It is really hard to communicate grind size in a video like what I'm doing right now, but I'm doing fine to medium. Well, again, it is really hard because for me to show you exactly what kind of grind size I'm using. Now, I do have the fellow or the genuine, and maybe you have the fellow or the genuine, maybe you changed the burst already. So what I'm showing here maybe is not corresponding to what you're having, or maybe you have another grinder, or maybe the coffee you are using maybe a washed Kenyan coffee, and all these things will have different ways you react. But again, if you do have the curve, now the curve here will help you to measure the grind size. For example, I'll tell you, you can use, let's say, 600 to 700 microns for you to get that delicious cup, which is just like a start. So I grind my coffee. Then I will discard my water here, put my coffee inside the maker, give a nice shake to distribute the coffee inside the coffee maker. Here, some people will give a nice well there to prepare the next phase, but for me, I only just keep it like that. We're doing is 60 grams per liter. Now, don't worry, you can play with the ratio the way you want. Now, when it comes to brewing coffee, there's no right, there's no wrong, because my preference is not your preference. So maybe you can start with 65 grams, 75 grams, 70 grams. It's just up to you. But this is just like a guide, a beginner guide. So you can just follow the process and you change it. Whatever thing works for you, you can go for it. So for the sake of this video and my recipe, I'll start with 60 grams per liter. So I have 20 grams of coffee. I'll be doing a 320 ml of water to brew the coffee. So first I'll there, and then I'll start the first phase, which is the blooming phase. Now the blooming phase here, I'll do for each gram of coffee, I'll do 2.5 ml of water to bloom the coffee. It means I have 20 grams of coffee. I'll be doing a 50 ml of water to bloom the coffee. Start my timer and I start my blooming. I want to make sure everything is wet. 50. Here I always love to swirl. Now some people can stir. It's okay, it is fine. Some people will not do anything, no agitation, you just leave it like that. Here it's called the blooming phase. Is to really saturate the coffee ground, make sure all the coffee have the same amount of water going through them to have a perfect extraction, and also to release some of those gases. And I'll leave it to bloom for around 40 seconds. Then I have to pour. So the second pour, I'll do a 135 ml of water. Then I'll leave it to brew for 30 seconds. Now it's important to understand that when you pour the water into the coffee maker, you disrupt the coffee bed. So the way you pour also determines your extraction. If you pour aggressively, or if you use a kettle that is not like really perfect, maybe you can pour aggressively and it will disrupt the coffee bed. It will cause bad extraction, and that is something that you don't actually want. Then here you want to start again at the center. You want to go around slowly, slowly, slowly. You want to make sure that the coffee extract evenly. So I'll pour again 135 ml. So 320, I stop. Now this is kind of a basic and simple recipe. You have just like 3 pours, 50, 135, 135. Now again, you can have 4 pourings, 5 pourings. It's just up to you. Just depend your recipe and what you actually want. So don't worry. Like I said before, you need to understand the technique, how to approach the coffee, because in the future we'll learn how to brew dark roast coffee, medium roast coffee, and light roast coffee, and as well as anaerobic, carbonic maceration, you name it. So for this brew, I target 3 minutes. Now it is 3 minutes. I'll remove this one here. Now, a few things to keep in mind when you make your V60 water temperature. Now, water temperature is really important because the higher the water temperature, the more energy applies to the coffee, the more extraction you do have. Now, for lighter roast coffee, I strongly recommend you can go for a much more higher water temperature. As well as if you do have let's say a dark roast coffee, you can go for a more lower water temperature, because if you go for a higher water temperature when it comes to dark roast coffee, you may extract some of those bitter flavors in the coffee. But again, it is not like you have to, or it's a must that you extract those bitter flavors, because you can still grind coarse and you still balance it up. So don't worry, it's just a recommendation. This is really important because it's a relationship between the water and the coffee, how much water you use to brew the coffee, which is really important. And we always talk about the strength of the coffee. Again, you can play with the ratio the way you want, the way you like your coffee to look like. The next thing is grind size. Like I said before, it is really hard to communicate grind size like what I'm doing right now. But again, you need to understand that you need to brew the coffee, you try the coffee, you brew the coffee, you try the coffee until you get that sweet spot that you really love. This thing is just for you just to understand what you need, how to choose a coffee, again, the technique. Answer your thoughts in the comments below. For now, I say thanks so much for watching and hope you have a great day.